one of the, if not the absolutely central things in the West, which is the tradition of the Bible. That the reason, the point I'm getting to is...
You talked about that in terms of the celebration of life,
yes,
right? Life more abundant, for example.
The point I'm getting to exactly is that when these people, whether it's the protesters in the West or the death cult itself in Hamas, Hezbollah, and others, I think they might have chosen their target well. I think they're onto something. They do know that if you take this out, everyone else is vulnerable next. It's very clever target selection, not just because of size, but because of
theologically
what it means.
Absolutely.
What it means theologically. And that's why I get onto this thing that, you see, again, it goes back to your thing about how ignorant we are in the West about the reality of evil, among much else, is the presumption that everyone wants what we want, for instance, which, among other things, is also just narcissistic projection. I mean, maybe everyone else doesn't want what you want. Maybe they want something totally different entirely. But one of the
like
things...
their women to be covered from head to toe so they can only see out one eye and never talk. Maybe they want that.
Maybe they want that.
Since they're pursuing that.
And, you know, one of the things I thought of a lot when I was thinking, when I was covering the... Obviously, this is also, as you know, a first-hand account of Israel's response in the conflict. One of the things I thought about a lot was what the spirit is that animates in response to the death cults. And I realized that it is, it's there in our texts. It's there in the books.
Therefore choose life.
Therefore choose life. Deuteronomy. Sure. Deuteronomy. Yeah. Choose life that you and your descendants might live. When I was thinking about that, I thought I was reminded of that phase of the new wave atheists in the 2000s, of which I was distantly a who used to say things like, well, the 10 Commandments, they're so obvious. I mean, they don't need to, why do we need to be told not to murder? Because you were murdering. Because humankind didn't know that you shouldn't murder.
There's envy. We could talk about envy. If you don't think that's an a priori condition, right, you are very naive.
So I heard that for many years about the 10 Commandments, and it was done in I think, usually naive and flippant way. But when it comes down to this one, literally the commandment to choose life in the face of whatever odds.
Yeah, whatever odds.
As the psalmist says.
That's the story of Job.
Exactly. And as the psalmist says, I shall not die, but I shall live. One of the things that I recount in the book is just the number of examples I came across from people who had stared right in the face of death, right in the face of evil, and who even in the face of it and in the aftermath of it had at the core of their being, I shall not die, but I shall live. And even in a military response, you see the difference between these things. Right,
you talk about Hezbollah breaking apart and everyone fleeing after the leadership is taken out, right? Well, that's why the 100 men possessed of the proper spirit can defeat 12,000 enemies.
Yes.
Because the enemies aren't united by anything transcendent.
One of the things that Hassan Nasrallah, the now late leader of Hezbollah, had said for many years was the jihadist death taunt. He had said it many times. There's a famous time in the 2000s when he says it in a speech in Beirut, when he says, the infidels' great weakness is that they love life. But we love death. And this is our great advantage. He and others around him really meant this. They wanted, just like kidnapping children, kidnapping civilians, they knew that if you go to a society focused on life, even to the extent of the minimization of deaths of their enemies, that if you go for a society that loves life, desires life, fights for life, that you can terrorize them, you can terrify them with your orgiastic celebration of death. But as I described toward the end of the book, as the year of the conflict starts to turn around, as Hassan Nasrallah goes to meet his maker, from a Beirut bunker, when Sinwar finally crops above ground in Rafah with only 3 other people with him. One, by the way, a bodyguard who was working for the UN, or UN agency. When Sinwar comes above...
UN.
Yes. Again, Sinwar's bodyguard paid for with our taxpayer dollars. But when the architect of the 7th finally comes above ground in Rafah, which of course the military expert Kamala Harris had told the Israeli army not to go into because she looked at the maps. But it turned out when they went into Rafah, they found their enemy. And when you see these people, there is an answer to the death cults. There is an answer to the cult of death, which the IDF has shown is the destruction of their leaders, the killing of the psychopaths who would lead a society in this way, and a demonstration of the values of your own society. Now, that has been incredibly hard, because there hasn't been a day I've been with the Israeli Defense Forces in the last year and a half when I haven't seen how they've been operating, and then read the world's news the next day and read it as if these were polar opposites of each other. As I say, Israelis enter hospital. Yes, because the hospital was somewhere where there's footage of hostages from the 7th being taken in on the 7th and not for care. Whether it's hospitals, schools, anything else, there was just nothing the IDF could do from the moment they went in, indeed from the moment before they went in, when they were not going to be misrepresented by the world's media in a grand way. But, and I've been asked many times in the last year and a half, why are the Israelis so bad at communicating? The truth is, it's extremely hard to communicate what you're doing to a world which in significant part has already decided that you're the bad guy.
And one that's manipulated as well, very profoundly, by the actors behind the scenes. And all the things that we talked about play into this. The refusal of the West to admit to the existence of malevolence, our inability to understand the difference between a just and an unjust war, our willingness to hide in the shibboleth that war is bad, which is hardly a moral claim at all.
No, I mean, I would say that people, there's a saying, I quote somebody saying the book is sort of idiot British student survey, in which a large number of people said they wouldn't be willing to fight for their country, even if it was under existential threat. And when
they've been taught that.
Well, yes, and when you dig down on the reasons why they said they wouldn't even be willing to fight for their country under existential threat, as the young men and women of Israel have had to do for the last 18 months, the most common reply among young British people of the same age was, war doesn't solve anything.
Right. War, yeah. Well, and you think about how easy it is to make the moral claim, for example. I've heard many people make this claim. I'm against the death of women and children. As if that's some sort of moral claim.
Well,
as if that's not the basis of common humanity. No one can capitalize on that.
Yes.
On that profession of their morality.
Well, and the other one I come across is people, by the way, and they don't really mean it, by the way, because again and again, the people who say that Israel is killing women and children are apologists for at best and supporters for at worst, a group that videoed themselves killing women and children. And many of the people who say that the Israelis, many of the people who say that the Israelis are doing this are the same people who say that Hamas did not. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's another level of the psychopathy now in the West. Mm-hmm. It's like, I've said repeatedly since the 7th, what did we have in the 2017 period? Believe all women. Mm-hmm. Turned out, don't believe women if they're Jews. Mm-hmm. Don't believe it then. Don't believe it if the rape is caught on camera by Hamas and they're boasting of it. Don't believe them. But then, a year down the road in the war in Gaza, these same people who deny that Hamas raped women on the 7th will say that Israeli soldiers are raping women in Gaza. Every single time it's some form of projection,
well, and that's that last-ditch attempt to what would you say, to salvage the
excuse-
oppressor-victim narrative.
Excuse
That's
the
the
inexcusable.
core. That's the staff in the center of the belief system.
But yes, I mean, to go back to the main point, yes, the main response that I hear is people who say things like, I don't like war.